Before the story begins, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and like. This will help the channel grow. The Disappearance on Willow Street, true crime detective story. Detective Michael Graves had seen plenty of crime scenes in his career, but there was something about the apartment on Willow Street that immediately set his nerves on edge. The air was heavy, the kind of stale silence that made his ears ring. A single teacup sat on the kitchen counter, still warm to the touch, but the tenant, Sarah Langford, was gone. No forced entry, no broken locks. Just a vanished woman in the middle of the city. Michael leaned against the doorframe, his trench coat brushing the dusty floor. Something felt wrong, not just the emptiness of the place, but the order. Whoever had been here had cleaned up too well. As he turned to leave, distracted, a small, hunched woman outside the building shouted, "Car!" Michael blinked. Yes, I work out," he muttered under his breath, misinterpreting it as a compliment on his build. Seconds later, a taxi screeched past, missing him by inches. The old lady smirked knowingly. Michael nodded awkwardly, cheeks flushed. Not his finest moment. But he shook it off. He had a mystery to solve, and Sarah's disappearance was already starting to look far stranger than a simple missing person case. The next morning, Michael returned to Willow Street to question Sarah's neighbors. Most were reluctant, speaking through half-open doors, eyes darting nervously down the hallway. Only one, a man named Mr. Donovan, agreed to let him in. Donovan was a wiry man with restless fingers, tapping the armrest of his chair. He described hearing footsteps in the hallway late at night, heavy, deliberate. Then a low humming sound, like someone whistling a lullaby. Sarah, he insisted, was terrified of something in the weeks before she vanished. Michael jotted down notes, while sipping the overly sweet tea Donovan had shoved into his hands. Halfway through the conversation, Michael shifted in his seat and heard a loud crack. The old chair snapped under him, sending him sprawling onto the floor. Donovan's laugh echoed like thunder through the apartment. Michael dusted himself off, trying to look dignified. "Part of the investigation," he muttered. Still, Donovan's story was valuable. A strange visitor. A haunting melody. And Sarah, too afraid to sleep. At the precinct, Michael spread Sarah's belongings across his desk. Among them, a stack of photographs she had developed in her spare time. She was an amateur photographer, capturing the city's forgotten corners, rusted bridges, foggy streets, empty playgrounds. But one photograph made Michael's pulse quicken. In the corner of a blurred shot of Willow Street, a tall man in a dark coat loomed, half hidden in shadow. His face was obscured, but his posture, rigid, watching, was unmistakable. Michael enlarged the photo and pinned it to his corkboard. The same lullaby Donovan mentioned still echoed in his mind, though he couldn't remember where he had heard it before. That evening, Michael left the station deep in thought. He nearly collided with a food vendor, spilling mustard across his coat. The vendor cursed, Michael apologized, and for a fleeting moment, he almost laughed at himself. Detectives in the movies never had mustard stains. But this was real life, and real life was messy. The trail led Michael to Riverside Park, a place Sarah often visited. At dusk, the park was almost deserted, save for a few joggers and an elderly man feeding pigeons. Michael walked the winding paths, ears pricked. And then he heard it. A soft whistle carried through the trees. The same lullaby. He followed the sound, heart pounding. It led him to a bench where a tattered notebook lay abandoned. Inside, pages filled with shaky handwriting, asterisk. He watches. He waits. Don't trust the shadows. Star. Suddenly, a branch snapped behind him. Michael spun around, flashlight cutting through the gloom. Nothing. Just empty pathways and whispering trees. As he left, still uneasy, a child rode past on a bicycle and shouted, Nice shoes, mister. Michael glanced down, realizing he had accidentally put on mismatched sneakers in his rush. One black, one brown. He sighed. Crime never waited for fashion. Michael's investigation finally pointed him to an abandoned warehouse on 9th Street. The building groaned in the wind, windows shattered like broken teeth. Inside, dust swirled in the beam of his flashlight. He found remnants of someone's life there, a blanket, a lantern, scraps of food. And pinned to the wall, dozens of photographs. All of Sarah. Walking to work, shopping, sitting at a cafe. Someone had been watching her for months. At the center of the wall was a final image. Sarah standing in front of her apartment, looking over her shoulder, fear etched into her face. Michael's stomach knotted. Whoever had taken her was organized, patient, obsessed. He snapped photos of the evidence and called it in, but as he did, he swore he heard the lullaby again, faint, almost mocking, from the shadows above. The city held its breath as Michael prepared for the sting operation. Officers surrounded the warehouse, moving silently in the dark. Michael stepped inside once more, his nerves taut, ears straining for the first notes of that cursed lullaby. And then, there it was. A whistle, steady, deliberate. A tall figure emerged from the shadows, coat sweeping across the floor. His face, finally visible under the dim light, was shockingly ordinary. Not a monster, not a legend. Just a man. A man named Richard Doyle, Sarah's former landlord, long obsessed with her. His motive was twisted love, his methods chillingly precise. Sarah was found alive in a hidden back room, shaken but safe. The case was closed, but the lullaby haunted Michael long after. Sometimes, walking home, he'd catch himself whistling it without realizing, and the memory would send a shiver down his spine. The city returned to its routine, but Michael knew one thing for certain: evil rarely looked like evil. Sometimes, it wore the most ordinary face of all.